In 2021, a studio was founded by a bunch of industry veterans whose past work ranged from The Last of Us to Call of Duty, and yesterday, we finally got to see what they've been working on, Crossfire. Here to tell us about it, That's No Moon Chief Creative Officer Taylor Kurosaki and Game Director Jacob Minkoff. Welcome, thanks for joining us, and thanks for finally showing off that game.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, so this is a tactical cover shooter with heavy narrative elements. We saw a lot of it. It's always nice to get a game reveal that shows that much of what is clearly gameplay. Can you give us a little bit of a sit rep in terms of just sort of who are the key players, where are we, what's going on?
So the story centers around two ideologically opposed operators, Layla Qasem and Delroy Cross, and they are thrust into a pressure situation, and they must temporarily put aside their differences in order to survive.
Okay. And the thing they're surviving, we get a sort of it opens and it looks very kind of conventionally tactical, realistic military stuff. Then you get some sort of sci-fi elements leaking in there. Can you touch a little bit on sort of how you're balancing grounded realism with supernatural stuff?
Sure, yeah. So we say that the game is like 80% military and 20% sci-fi. We'll be talking about the sci-fi more later, but the important thing is that it's all about the pressure placed on these characters that makes them work together despite being ideologically opposed.
I like that. That's a good ratio of sci-fi to realism, by the way. The big thing you want to show off here, though, is the adaptive cover. How does that work? What does that mean?
Let's let the professor talk about this.
So, adaptive cover allows the player to take cover in the most complex, organic, detailed environments ever seen in a third-person cover-based shooter. Basically, the idea is that Layla reacts to the enemy's line of sight and the context of the environment around them to take the lowest stance possible to protect them. So what this does is it encourages projecting your awareness into the environment, really reading like, what's the elevation of that enemy? Okay, where can I biomechanically take cover in this spot? And really reading the space, being immersed in the space like a real human being would.
That's a pretty far cry from like Sly Cooper hiding behind boxes and stuff.
Yeah.
So Clint Hawking, who made the Splinter Cell a million years ago, was talking about how modern games, doing stealth in modern games is difficult because everything is so realistic. Is this sort of like an answer to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that was our vision. When we got our hands on Unreal Engine 5, just being nerdy about it, the nanite technology allows you to have infinite polygons on screen. And we said, oh my God, this is a game changer. We can make environments that look absolutely like the real world. What a pity it would be if we limited ourselves to like simple boxes and pillars and chest-high cover. So we dedicated the team to developing a new innovative cover mechanic that would untie the hands of the artists and designers and allow them to build anything that they could imagine, and the character would use it as cover.
Now, in addition to that, there's also a bit in there of this kind of interesting reticle, this interesting way of aiming down sights. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it works?
Yeah, it's funny you noticed that because we haven't mentioned it at all. But there are a lot of innovations in this game, and one of them is instead of doing traditional reticle bloom, a thing that we do in this game is we model the front and rear sights of the gun, so you can see the rear sight and the front sight and how they relate to one another. And as you move around the environment, like if the front sight is offset left, that's where the bullet's going to go. If it's offset right, that's where the bullet's going to go. If they're lined up, it's going to go straight forward. And that really gives you some meaningful choices in our progression and upgrade path, because if you apply a parallax-free sight like a red dot or a hollow sight to your gun, then the bullet goes exactly where that parallax-free sight is. So it's really much more a realistic model of how guns work and how reticles work.
That's gnarly. Now you mentioned pressure. Obviously, we're going to be hunkering down a lot. We're going to be trying to avoid conflict. Can you talk a bit about just how punishing is this going to be? Because I feel like people hear tactical shooter rather than just regular shooter. It just means you like walk into the room and you just head gets blown off.
It's not going to be that punishing.
Okay.
We like to have games that sort of compel you to use the tools available to you. And so consequently, the difficulty level needs to be at a certain level to buy into the narrative. really, when Jake and I make these games, it's all about connecting and intertwining the story and the design. And so this is a story where Layla and Delroy literally say we either need to fight together or die alone. And so the gameplay has to support that. But at the end of the day, it's a mainstream game. I mean, Jake really likes a lot of these mil-sim tactical games, but he's always wanted to bring a lot of those elements to a broader audience.
Yeah, adaptive cover, the whole vision of it is like that the system chooses the stance for you based on the context of the environment. You don't have to like micromanage all of that, so it makes it much more accessible to play a tactical shooter.
Now, the idea of shooting from behind cover is cool. It's exciting, but there's also the alternative, which is to not get noticed in the first place. Does the cover also play in sort of a stealthy fashion?
Yeah, this game is all about breaking line of sight, repositioning. This is a game where you have a lot of tactical options available to you. Look at the enemies in the distance, see like, do I want to pick them off one by one? Do I want to try to get in there close and pick somebody off and then like fall behind cover and reposition? Enemies are going to know where your last known position is, but they're not going to know where you are right now. And one of the things that's particularly unique about this game is we model the knowledge of the enemies, of the player, and the buddy characters separately. A lot of games will do a thing where it's like, oh, you pop the combat bubble and everybody knows where everybody is right now. But enemies can know about where your buddy Delroy Cross is, but not where you are. So they can be in a firefight and you've broken line of sight, repositioned. They have no idea you're in stealth. So your buddy can draw enemy fire and provide you with like opportunities to flank and get a stealth kill while bullets are flying.
That's intense. A lot of the stuff you're showing off is in broad daylight, which is kind of antithetical to what a lot of people think of when they think of stealth. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, the different environments you're working with? There's also some kind of shadowy interior corridors, more rigid manufactured stuff, but then you've also got these organic rock formations. How do those differently affect gameplay? And I guess, are the levels, is it always just kind of you roll in and nobody notices you until they do, or is it different situations call for different approaches?
There's all kinds of different situations, all kinds of environments, times of day, and all of that. When you see all of this very detailed outdoor topography and geography, it's because of the technology that was given, in Unreal Engine 5. Basically, we have these incredibly talented photogrammatical artists that go out into the real world, they scan elements and things like that, and then they put it together in the most realistic environments that we've ever played in a third-person cover-based shooter, and it really has untied the hands of our artists to do their best work.
Rad. Something I love in a video game is when there's not a whole lot of UI or HUD on the screen. It kind of makes me forget them in a video game. How are you approaching that? Like, how are you messaging information to players without kind of overwhelming them with?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about balance, right? We are making a cinematic thriller here, and any piece of UI is going to make it feel less immersive and like like you're playing a film. So we always try to only provide you with the necessary information, and it's all about streamlining it too. Like, when eventually we start showing you our inventory and stuff, you're going to see that we're really making everything be the minimum, cleanest, fastest to interact with that we possibly can, because we want you to get back into the action.
Sick. Let's talk about these main characters. What's their? How did you find their dynamic? I guess like the opening exchange between them in the trailer is, I feel like, a very good way of just like it's a. She's cynical. She hates people, and he's like, I think they're great, and she's like, you're sick. That's a.
I mean, it's easy. It's hard not to be a little cynical, right, in the world that we live in. But underneath it all, we have this shared humanity, no matter what our differences are. And so Layla believes what she believes. She has her worldview. Delroy believes what he believes. He has his world view. And those things are basically diametrically opposed. We have set them up to be as opposite as we possibly can. And then we introduce the pressure. They quickly decide they must form this temporary alliance. No one is going to change sides or believe something different. They believe what they believe, but that shared humanity, the the camaraderie that they have for each other. They would have never established this if we had not put this pressure on them. So at the end of the day, they are better for their time together. They recognize that the narrative of the other is valid despite their differences, and we think that's a really important story to tell.
Now, this is sort of attached to an existing universe. This is Crossfire. There's already a long-running first-person shooter called Crossfire. How are these connected?
So when we met Smilegate back in 2021, they said to us, we just want you to make the game of your careers. We want you to just make something that you believe in, and we will support you. Which, of course, that was like...
That's nice.
That's why That's No Moon exists. And but we knew they were associated with this massive game, billions of players, 17 years running, and we did a little deep dive into the IP, and as we discovered, the IP reflects our worldview. It reflects a world where there aren't good guys or bad guys. There are different people with different points of view, and we said to them, can we make a game in this IP? Would you allow us to play in this sandbox? And they said yes, and we were off to the races.
And we've honestly wanted to tell this story for our entire careers. And often there are people who say like, well, yeah, give me a villain that I can hate and that I want to shoot in the face. And we're like, no, we believe in a more gray world where people aren't completely wrong or completely right, and they can learn to see each other's perspectives. And that is perfect if you want to tell that story within the Crossfire IP. And so we feel really lucky to be able to do that.
That is awesome. It sounds like you guys are taking some really big swings narratively and mechanically, and I'm dying to check it out. Thank you both for coming by. Crossfire looks amazing. When can we expect to see more of it or play it?
We have a plan. We're going to talk more about the sci-fi elements, as we move forward. Again, we just wanted to finally be able to talk and share what we've been working on with the world. So we're really excited and really, really grateful for the response we've gotten.
Cool. Well, again, thank you so much. And Crossfire looks rad. There's more IGN Live coming up. Stick around.